The first time I saw my name written on the wall, I thought someone broke into my house. It was written in large, uneven letters, right above my bedroom door. Dark, rough strokes, like someone had used their fingers instead of a pen. And the worst part was, I live alone. If you enjoy disturbing stories that stay with you long after the video ends, make sure you like this video and subscribe to Dark Whispers. Because some stories don't just scare you, they wait for you. It started 3 weeks after I moved into the apartment. The place was cheap, quiet, and mostly empty. The landlord said the previous tenant left suddenly, but he didn't explain why. I didn't ask. Cheap rent in a silent building felt like a good deal at the time. The first night was normal. The second night, too. But on the third morning, I woke up and noticed something strange. My name was written on the wall near the door. Not scratched, not painted. Written. The letters were messy, shaky, and uneven, like a child learning how to write. For a long moment I just stared at it, trying to convince myself it had always been there, and I simply hadn't noticed. But I knew that wasn't true. I grabbed a wet cloth and wiped the wall until the marks disappeared. The paint came off slightly, leaving a faint stain, but the name was gone. I checked the locks on every door and window. Everything was sealed. That night I slept uneasily. The next morning the name was back, but this time it wasn't near the door. It was on the wall beside my bed, closer. The letters looked darker, more confident, as if whoever wrote them was learning. A cold fear settled in my chest. I searched the apartment for hidden cameras, secret entrances, anything that could explain what was happening. Nothing. Again, I cleaned the wall. Again, the name vanished. I told myself it was stress, new home anxiety. Sleepwalking, maybe? The mind can play strange tricks when you're alone. But the following morning changed everything. The name appeared again, closer to my pillow. I hadn't slept well that night. I remembered waking briefly around 3 a.m., feeling like someone was standing beside the bed. I had been too afraid to open my eyes. Now, seeing the writing inches from where my head had rested, I felt something inside me break. I installed a small camera facing the bedroom wall. That night, I forced myself to sleep. The next morning, the name had returned again, even larger than before. My hands trembled as I checked the camera recording. At first, nothing happened. Hours of empty room footage, stillness, silence. Then at exactly 3:13 a.m., the camera glitched. The screen filled with static. The audio became distorted, like distant whispering underwater. When the image returned, the name was already written on the wall. No person, no movement, just the writing appearing between frames. I watched the clip again and again, my heart pounding harder each time. Something was inside my room, something the camera couldn't see. That night, I decided to stay awake. I turned off the lights and sat in the corner, staring at the wall. The silence in the apartment felt heavy, pressing against my ears. Hours passed. Nothing happened. Then, slowly, I heard a sound, a faint dragging noise, like fingers sliding across paint. The sound came from the wall beside my bed. I switched on the light. The wall was empty, but the surface looked damp, as if freshly touched. And then I noticed something worse. Above the place where the name usually appeared, new marks had formed. Small lines, tally marks, counting something. Days, maybe, or attempts. The next morning, the name appeared again, But this time something had changed. It wasn't just my name. A second word had been added beneath it. Come. The letters were clearer now, more controlled. The message felt intentional. I stopped sleeping in the bedroom after that. I moved to the couch in the living room, keeping all the lights on. But every morning I returned to check the room, and each day the writing had moved, from the wall beside the bed, to the headboard, to the ceiling directly above where I used to sleep, always closer, always watching. The apartment began to feel alive. The walls creaked at night, even without temperature changes. Soft whispers echoed through the vents. Sometimes I heard footsteps moving slowly in the hallway outside my bedroom. One night, while sitting awake in the living room, I heard my own voice coming from the bedroom, whispering my name, calling me. I locked the door and refused to enter until morning. When I finally opened it, the entire wall behind the bed was covered with my name, written hundreds of times in overlapping strokes. The letters crawled across the surface like spreading infection, and in the center of the wall, one message stood out. Closer. I left the apartment that day. I stayed with a friend across the city, convinced distance would end whatever nightmare had begun in that room. For 2 nights, nothing happened. On the third morning, I woke up and saw faint letters forming on the wall beside the guest bed. My name, written slowly, as if something had followed me. I tried ignoring it. I tried sleeping with lights on, music playing, television running. But the writing continued to appear each night, inching closer to wherever I rested. The presence was no longer tied to the apartment. It was tied to me. Sleep became impossible. My mind drifted between exhaustion and fear. The line between dreams and waking began to blur. One night, unable to stay awake any longer, I fell into a deep sleep. I dreamed of a dark, empty room. The walls stretched endlessly in every direction, and written across every surface was my name, repeating again and again. In the center of the room stood a figure shaped from shadow. It had no face, no features, only hands. Long, trembling hands dragging across the walls, endlessly writing. It turned toward me, and though it had no eyes, I felt it looking directly into my mind. I woke up screaming, and there, on the ceiling above my bed, fresh letters were forming, right in front of me. Invisible fingers pressed into the paint, shaping each curve slowly, deliberately. I watched in frozen terror as my name completed itself. Then the letters changed. They rearranged. A new message appeared. You see me now. The room grew cold. The air thickened, making it hard to breathe. From the corner of the room, the wall began to bulge outward, as if something behind it was pushing through. A shape emerged beneath the paint, a human outline, trapped inside the wall. Its fingers stretched outward, reaching toward me. I ran from the apartment and never returned. The landlord later told me the previous tenant had vanished without explanation. Before disappearing, he had reported strange writing appearing on his walls, his name, over and over. I tried to move on. I changed cities, changed jobs, changed everything. But sometimes, late at night, I still wake to a faint dragging sound near my bed. And every morning, before opening my eyes, I feel the wall beside me, checking, praying that nothing new has been written. Because the last time I saw the message, it wasn't my name. It was a single sentence. Your turn to write. And sometimes when the room is silent and the lights are off, I feel my hand moving on its own, slowly reaching toward the wall. Welcome to Dark Whispers, where the walls remember your name